In recent years, one of the most pressing questions in the global economy has been, can the BRICS alliance truly challenge the dominance of the United States dollar? For decades, the US dollar has been the undisputed king of international trade, finance, and reserves. Nearly 60% of global foreign exchange reserves are held in dollars, and most commodities like oil and natural gas are traded in dollars. This gives the United States not only economic power, but also geopolitical leverage. But now, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are pushing back. With the recent expansion of the group to include more major economies such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Iran, the alliance is gaining both size and influence. And with this expansion comes a bold question: is the BRICS preparing to create a new currency to replace, or at least challenge, the US dollar? The rise of BRICS. The BRICS group was originally formed in the early 2000s as a coalition of emerging economies. Their goal was simple: to create a platform where developing nations could coordinate on trade, finance, and development. Over the years, BRICS has grown in significance. Together, the 5 original members already represent over 40% of the world's population and more than a quarter of global GDP. With the new members, their influence is even larger. Saudi Arabia and the UAE bring vast oil wealth, while Egypt and Ethiopia provide access to Africa's fast-growing markets. Iran, despite being isolated from Western markets, holds strategic geopolitical value. This makes BRICS not just an economic bloc, but also a political and strategic counterweight to Western-led institutions like the G7 and NATO. The dollar's global power. To understand why the BRICS are so focused on reducing dependence on the dollar, we first need to understand the power the dollar holds. Whenever a country wants to buy oil, wheat, or even electronic components, chances are, the transaction will be done in dollars. This means that nations must hold large reserves of US currency, giving America an enormous advantage. The United States can impose sanctions, cut countries off from the SWIFT payment system, or restrict access to global markets simply because of its dollar dominance. Russia, for example, has faced this exact pressure since the Ukraine conflict. Iran has been under dollar-related sanctions for decades. For BRICS nations, this creates a vulnerability. As long as they rely on the dollar, they remain exposed to US financial pressure. Why BRICS wants an alternative? This is why the idea of a BRICS currency has gained momentum. The proposed currency would allow members to trade among themselves without using the dollar. It could be backed by a basket of commodities such as oil, gold, or rare earth minerals, resources that BRICS countries already control in large quantities. For example, Russia and Saudi Arabia are 2 of the world's largest energy exporters. China dominates rare earth production. South Africa is rich in gold and platinum. Together, these countries could create a currency with strong backing in real assets, something the dollar has not had since it left the gold standard in 1971. The challenges ahead. But replacing the US dollar is not as easy as it sounds. First, trust is a major issue. The dollar has remained dominant because global markets trust its stability, supported by the US government and its institutions. Investors know that the dollar is liquid, reliable, and widely accepted. Can the same be said about a BRICS currency? The BRICS countries have very different political systems, economic models, and even rivalries. India and China, for example, have ongoing border tensions. Russia is isolated from the West, while Brazil often shifts its foreign policy depending on leadership. Building a shared currency requires deep cooperation, strong institutions, and transparency, all of which remain challenges within BRICS. De-dollarization, a gradual process. Still, even if a new BRICS currency is far away, the group has already started taking steps toward de-dollarization. China and Russia now trade a majority of their energy deals in Chinese yuan. India has experimented with paying for Russian oil using rupees. Brazil and China have launched direct currency swaps to settle trade without dollars. And perhaps most importantly, Saudi Arabia has hinted at accepting Chinese yuan for oil exports, a direct challenge to the petrodollar system that has kept the dollar dominant for decades. These small steps might not replace the dollar overnight, but they are slowly chipping away at its monopoly. The bigger picture. So, will the BRICS replace the US dollar? The answer is, not anytime soon. The dollar's dominance is built on decades of trust, military power, financial institutions, and global networks. It is not something that can be dismantled quickly. However, the expansion of BRICS shows that many countries are no longer comfortable depending entirely on the US-led financial system. They are looking for alternatives, even if those alternatives are still in their early stages. In the long run, what we might see is not the total collapse of the dollar, but a multipolar world where multiple currencies play significant roles. The dollar may remain strong, but it could face real competition from regional currencies, digital currencies, and perhaps, one day, a unified BRICS currency. Conclusion. The BRICS expansion is more than just symbolism. It reflects a shifting balance of power in the global economy. As more countries join the alliance, the possibility of a new financial order becomes harder to ignore. But whether BRICS can truly replace the dollar will depend on their ability to overcome internal divisions, build trust, and create institutions strong enough to rival the United States. For now, the dollar remains the world's king. But the winds of change are blowing. And if history has taught us anything, it is that no empire, and no currency, lasts forever.